They say blood is thicker than water. But sitting in that sterile conference room, watching my mother slide the partnership dissolution papers across the polished oak table, I realized blood can be just as cold as ice when money's involved. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sullivan & Associates marketing agency. 23 floors above downtown Chicago, in the very office I'd helped design 5 years ago, my entire world was crumbling with the scratch of a pen. My name is Grace Sullivan. Yesterday, I was the creative director and co-founder of one of the most successful boutique marketing agencies in the Midwest. Today, I was apparently just another employee being let go. The difference? This wasn't downsizing. This was a coup, orchestrated by the two people I trusted most in the world. Your brother Tyler has shown exceptional leadership qualities, my mother Margaret said, adjusting her pearl necklace with perfectly manicured fingers. The board has unanimously decided he's ready to take full control of operations. We're restructuring, and your position has been eliminated. The board, all three of them, my mother, my brother, and our family attorney, Richard Brennan, who'd known me since I was in pigtails. They sat there in their pressed suits, avoiding my eyes like guilty children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Tyler finally looked up from his leather portfolio. The same portfolio I'd given him 3 years ago when he graduated from Northwestern. Grace, this isn't personal. It's just business evolution. You've done amazing work, but the agency needs a fresh perspective. Fresh perspective. My fingers tightened around my coffee mug, the one with "World's Best Sister" printed. On it, a gift from Tyler last Christmas. The irony tasted bitter. Fresh perspective, I repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling theft now? Margaret's lips pursed. That's a strong word, Grace. No one's stealing anything. You'll receive a generous severance package. 6 months, salary, your company car for another year, and we'll honor your health insurance through... How generous of you to offer me crumbs from the table I built. My voice remained steady, professional. Years of client pitches had taught me to keep my emotions locked tight. Tell me, when exactly did you decide I was expendable? Was it before or after we landed the Morrison Industries account? Richard shifted uncomfortably. Grace, please understand, this decision wasn't made lightly. Your mother and brother feel the agency needs to pivot toward digital-first strategies, and Tyler's MBA specialized in digital marketing. Yes, I know. I proofread his thesis. Twice. I stood up, smoothing my blazer. I assume you want my laptop and access cards? Tyler's Adam's apple bobbed. Actually, we were hoping you'd stay on for a transition period. Maybe 2 weeks to transfer? Your accounts and... A laugh escaped me, short, sharp, like breaking glass. Transfer my accounts, of course. You want the clients I cultivated, the campaigns I created, the relationships I built over 7 years? But not me. Gracie. My mother's voice softened, using my childhood nickname like a peace offering. We're still family. This doesn't change that. The words hung in the air like smoke. I picked up my laptop bag, pulled out my company MacBook, and set it on the table with deliberate care. Then I removed my keycard, the one that accessed every floor, every room, every system in the building. The metallic click as I placed it beside the laptop echoed in the silence. You're right, Mom. Family is forever. I smiled, the kind I reserved for difficult clients. Which is why what happens next is going to hurt so much more. Tyler's brow furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I tucked my personal iPad under my arm. The transition period starts now. I've already initiated the handover protocols. Everything should transfer smoothly. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I walked toward the door. I'd check the Morrison presentation for tomorrow, though. Sometimes technology can be temperamental. Grace, wait! My mother's voice followed me, but I didn't turn around. "Enjoy your fresh perspective," I said, pulling the door open. "I hope it's worth what it cost you." The elevator ride down felt like descending through years of memories. Each floor marker blinked past like a countdown. 23, 22, 21. When I'd started this company with my mother's seed money and my laptop in her garage, I never imagined it would end in a hostile takeover by my own family. Outside, the Chicago wind whipped through the canyon of skyscrapers. I slipped on my sunglasses. Designer frames Tyler had helped me pick out last month during what I now realized was reconnaissance, not brotherly bonding. My phone buzzed. 17 missed calls already. I didn't need to check to know they were from client accounts, team members, probably even the building security. The first dominoes were starting to fall, but they didn't know about the 18th floor. They didn't know about the server room I'd personally configured. They didn't know about the authentication protocols woven into every piece of proprietary software we used. Most importantly, they didn't know about the kill switch I'd built into the Morrison presentation. Our biggest account, worth 40% of the agency's annual revenue. Because 3 months ago, I noticed some irregularities. Login attempts at odd hours. Files accessed from Tyler's credentials when I knew he was at his girlfriend's place in Lincoln Park. Strategy documents downloaded to external drives. Board meeting minutes I wasn't privy to despite being a founding partner. At first, I told myself I was paranoid. This was family. My mother mortgaged her house to help me start this dream. My baby brother who used to fall asleep on my dorm room floor during his freshman year anxiety attacks. They couldn't. But the evidence kept mounting. Emails between Tyler and potential investors. Legal consultations about partnership dissolution. Salary negotiations for a role that suspiciously matched my responsibilities. They weren't just planning to edge me out. They were planning to erase me entirely from the company's history. So I prepared. Not for revenge, but for protection. For truth. The Gray Coats coffee shop on State Street was my usual afternoon retreat. As I settled into my favorite corner booth, laptop open, I pulled up my private server dashboard. Everything was green, all systems operational. The countdown timer in the corner read, 18:32:07, 18 hours until the Morrison presentation. 18 hours until Tyler would stand in front of our biggest client and try to pitch them on a revolutionary campaign strategy. A strategy I'd spent 6 months developing. A strategy that required biometric authentication to unlock the final presentation files, authentication that only I possessed. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. A text from Jessica, my former assistant. "Grace, what's happening? They're saying you resigned? The Morrison files won't open. Tyler's freaking out." I typed back. "Tell him to check his email. Authentication protocols are in place." The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted my work without me. My innovation without my involvement. My creativity without my credit. But creation and creator were inextricably linked in the digital age. Every algorithm had an author. Every campaign had a cornerstone. Every system had a soul, and I was about to teach them that lesson in the most expensive way possible. Another buzz. This time, an email from the system I'd designed. Security alert. Unauthorized access attempt detected. Morrison campaign folder. Locked. Administrator credentials required. Time remaining. 18:28:43. I smiled and ordered a latte. The barista, a college kid named Marcus who knew my usual, raised an eyebrow. "You look different today, Ms. Sullivan." "Good difference." "Just starting a new chapter," I said, sliding him a 20. "Keep the change." As I settled back into my booth, I opened a new document on my personal laptop. At the top, I typed, "Lessons in Digital Security, a Guide to Protecting Intellectual Property in Family Businesses." Chapter 1 would begin with a simple principle: trust, but verify. Chapter 2, Always maintain administrative control of your creations. Chapter 3. Document everything, but the most important lesson wouldn't be about technology or legal protections. It would be about recognizing the moment when family stops being family and starts being competition. That moment when Sunday dinners become strategy sessions, when proud smiles hide calculating thoughts, when "we're so proud of you" becomes "you've outlived your usefulness." My mother raised me on her favorite saying, "Keep your friends close and your enemies closer." She just never taught me what to do when your enemies used to tuck you in at night. The coffee shop was filled with the afternoon rush. Young professionals hunched over laptops, probably building their own dreams, their own futures. I wondered how many of them trusted the wrong people. How many would learn, as I had, that betrayal often comes wrapped in familiar faces and comforting words. My phone rang. Tyler's number. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. "Grace, this is ridiculous. You can't hold the company hostage over hurt feelings. We need those files. The presentation is tomorrow morning. Morrison's flying in tonight? Call me back, please." Hurt feelings. As if this was about emotion rather than ethics. As if years of building something from nothing could be dismissed as sentiment. Another email popped up, this time from Margaret. "Grace, Elizabeth Sullivan. This behavior is unacceptable. You're jeopardizing everything we've built, everything your father would have wanted for this family. Return the files immediately or we'll have no choice but to pursue legal action. Mom, my father." She played that card like a trump. Dad, who died when I was 15, who left us drowning in debt, who whispered to me from his hospital bed, "Take care of them, Gracie. You're the strong one." A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I'd kept that promise. Worked 3 jobs through college. Graduated summa cum laude. Built a company from scratch. Took care of them. Protected them. Provided for them. And this was my reward. A pink slip disguised as a board decision. A theft wrapped in corporate speak. The authentication system sent another alert. Multiple override attempts detected. Security level elevated. Biometric scan required for access. Time remaining. 17:45:21. They were getting desperate. Good. Desperation. Revealed the truth. It stripped away pretense and showed people for who they really were. And who were they? My mother, the woman who taught me to read, who now couldn't read the room well enough to see she was destroying her own daughter. My brother, who I'd tutored through algebra, who now calculated my worth like a line item on a balance sheet. The truth was as clear as the Chicago skyline outside the window. They didn't want a daughter or a sister. They wanted a workhorse. Creative machine. A stepping stone. And when the stone had served its purpose, they kicked it aside. But stones could be cornerstones. Remove one from the wrong place, and the whole structure crumbles. I closed my laptop and stood up. Time to go home. Not the corporate apartment near the office. That was probably being repossessed as I sat here. But my real home. The cramped studio where I'd first sketched out the agency's logo on a second-hand iPad. Where I'd pulled countless all-nighters perfecting pitch decks. Where the real Grace Sullivan lived, not the polished executive they thought they knew. As I walked out into the fading afternoon light, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Richard Brennan's personal cell. "Grace, they don't know I'm texting you." "What you're doing? It's brilliant. But be careful. They're calling in favors. Big ones. Watch your back." R. So even the family lawyer could see the writing on the wall. Maybe there was hope for justice after all. Or maybe he just knew which way the wind was blowing and wanted to hedge his bets. Either way, the game was in motion. They'd made their move. Now it was my turn, and I always played to win. The next 18 hours would determine everything. Would they swallow their pride and admit they needed me? Would they recognize the value of what they were so eager to steal? Or would they let the Morrison account and 40% of their revenue walk out the door rather than acknowledge my worth? The city lights began to flicker on as dusk settled over Chicago. Somewhere in that glass tower, my family was scrambling, scheming, probably screaming. Let them. Every minute that passed was another minute closer to their reckoning. They thought they were cutting me loose. In reality, they'd cut their own lifeline. Because in the digital age, you couldn't separate the creator from the creation. You couldn't steal innovation. You could only borrow it, and I was about to call in the loan. Tomorrow morning, in precisely 17 hours and 16 minutes, Tyler would walk into the Morrison conference room. He'd smile his practiced smile, straighten his custom suit, and open his laptop. The presentation would load. The first slide would appear. And then, system error. Authentication required. Access denied. The trap wasn't malicious, it wasn't destructive. It was simply the truth. The truth is that I built this, I created this, I owned this, and without me, they owned nothing but an empty office and a ticking clock. My phone buzzed. Again. This time, a notification from my bank. The severance payment had been deposited. 6-month salary, just as promised. I almost laughed. They were so confident, so certain I'd cave. So sure family loyalty would override business sense. They'd forgotten the first rule of negotiation. Only negotiate from a position of strength. And right now, I held all the cards. Every password, every patent, every piece of proprietary software that made Sullivan and Associates more than just another marketing shop in a city full of them. The wind picked up as I reached my building. The doorman, Eddie, tipped his cap. "Evening, Ms. Sullivan. Long day?" "The longest," I said, "but also the most enlightening." He held the door open. "Tomorrow's another day, ma'am. Fresh starts and all that." Fresh starts. I liked the sound of that. As the elevator carried me up to my apartment, I thought about what tomorrow would bring. Phone calls, negotiations, maybe tears, definitely anger, but also, possibly, respect. The respect I'd earned but never received. The recognition that I wasn't just another employee to be downsized, but the heart of what made our agency special. They had approximately 17 hours to figure that out. 17 hours to realize that blood might be thicker than water, but integrity was thicker than both. 17 hours to understand that you couldn't build an empire on stolen foundations. The elevator doors opened. I stepped out into the hallway, keys in hand, future uncertain but spirit unbroken. Whatever happened next, I'd face it on my own terms. Because that's what you did when your family betrayed you. You didn't seek revenge. You sought justice. You didn't destroy it. You revealed. And sometimes, the most powerful revelation was simply showing people exactly what they stood to lose. The countdown continued. 16 hours, 58 minutes. Let the games begin. 7 years earlier, Margaret Sullivan stood in her kitchen, mortgage papers spread across the granite countertop like tarot cards predicting an uncertain future. Her reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed the numbers for the 5th time. Refinancing the brownstone felt like betting the family's future on a 24-year-old's dream. "Mom, you don't have to do this," I said, nursing my 3rd cup of coffee. "I can take out a business loan, find investors." "Nonsense," she signed. Her name with the same decisive strokes she'd used signing my father's death certificate 9 years prior. "Banks won't touch a startup with no collateral, and investors want control. This stays in the family." Family. The word carried weight in the Sullivan household. After Dad's sudden heart attack left us drowning in medical debt, family meant survival. It meant Margaret working double shifts as a hospital administrator. It meant me tutoring Rich, kids in Winnetka to pay for textbooks. It meant 15-year-old Tyler doing his homework in hospital waiting rooms while Mom pulled overtime. We survived because we stuck together. Now, I wanted to build something that would ensure we'd never struggle again. The idea came during my senior year at DePaul. Professor Henkins assigned us to create marketing campaigns for fictional companies. While classmates pitched energy drinks and dating apps, I developed an integrated digital strategy for a boutique consulting firm. The professor pulled me aside after class. "This is graduate-level work, Grace. Have you considered starting your own agency?" The seed was planted. By graduation, it had grown into a full business plan. Sullivan and Associates Marketing would specialize in what others overlooked: small to medium businesses ready to scale but lacking the expertise. We'd be their partner, not just their vendor. Personal service with enterprise-level strategy. "Here's what I need," I told Mom that morning in her kitchen. $50,000 for equipment, software licenses, and 6 months operating expenses. I've got our first 3 clients lined up. Small fish now, but they'll grow with us. Margaret removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "And Tyler?" My younger brother was finishing his sophomore year at Northwestern, studying business. "He'll join us after graduation, learn the ropes, build his resume. This is his future, too." "What about your future?" She studied me with that penetrating mother's gaze. "You could work anywhere. Ogilvy, Leo Burnett. Why risk everything on... because those places will never be ours." I spread my projected earnings across the table. 5 years, Mom. Give me 5 years, and we'll buy this house back free and clear. Tyler's student loans, your retirement, everything. She looked at the papers again, then at me. "Your father would be proud, and probably terrified." "Mostly terrified," I agreed. "He always said I got my stubbornness from you." Margaret laughed, the sound echoing off the kitchen tiles. "God help us all." She capped her pen. "All right, partners?" We shook hands across the table. The deal was sealed. The first office was a converted dental suite in Wicker Park. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, and the lingering smell of antiseptic. I spent 2 weeks painting it myself, transforming sterile medical white into creative agency chic. Tyler helped on weekends, showing up with coffee and questionable music playlists. "Why Sullivan and Associates when it's just you?" he asked. "Taping off window frames, because it won't always be just me." I dipped my roller in charcoal gray paint. "You'll be here. Mom will consult, maybe hire some freelancers, build a team. A family dynasty." He grinned. The Sullivan Empire. Those early days blurred together. Client pitches at 7 a.m., strategy. Sessions until midnight. Weekends disappeared into website wireframes and social media calendars. I lived on takeout and ambition, sleeping on an air mattress in the office more nights than my apartment. The first breakthrough came 6 months in. Peterson's Hardware, a 4th-generation family business, hired us to modernize their image. They'd been hemorrhaging customers to big box stores. Our campaign, built by neighbors for neighbors, combined digital marketing with community storytelling. Sales jumped 30% in 3 months. Word spread. Chicago business owners talked. Soon, we had more work than I could handle alone. "You need help," Margaret observed during one of our Sunday dinners. These had become strategy sessions disguised as family time. "Hire someone." "Can't afford it yet. I'm managing." "You're drowning." Tyler pushed his green beans around his plate. "I could take a semester off, help out." "Absolutely not." The words came out sharper than intended. "You finish school. That was the deal." "Grace." Margaret's tone carried maternal authority. "You can't do everything alone. That's not how businesses grow." She was right. The next week, I hired Sarah. Chen, a brilliant developer fresh from coding boot camp. Then Marcus Williams, a copywriter with agency experience looking for meaningful work. Building a team meant sharing control. It also meant multiplying possibilities. By year 2, we'd outgrown the dental suite. Tyler spent summers and breaks learning every aspect of the business. He had a natural charm that complemented my intensity. Where I saw systems and strategies, he saw stories and relationships. Clients loved him. "You've got the magic touch," I told him after he landed the restaurant group account. "People trust you instantly." I learned from the best. He organized the contract files with military precision. "Though you might want to work on your small talk. Mrs. Patterson mentioned you launched straight into analytics during the coffee meeting. Small talk is inefficient. Small talk is human." He laughed. "Not everything is a spreadsheet, Grace." The lesson stuck. Tyler taught me to see clients as people, not projects. I taught him to back intuition with data. Together, we balanced each other perfectly. Margaret joined board meetings quarterly, offering wisdom wrapped in gentle questions. "Have you considered the tax implications? What's your succession planning? How does this align with your 5-year vision?" She never pushed, never demanded, just guided. I thought it was a motherly concern. Looking back, maybe she was already planting seeds. Year 3 brought our biggest challenge yet. Morrison Industries, a manufacturing giant, wanted to rebrand. The RFP process was brutal. Competing against established agencies with decades of experience, we were the underdogs. "We need something unprecedented," I told the team during a late-night brainstorming session. Pizza boxes littered the conference table. Sarah's laptop screen cast blue light across exhausted faces. "What about an interactive campaign?" Tyler suggested. "Something that shows their innovation in real time?" "Manufacturing isn't sexy," Marcus added. "But what if we made it feel futuristic? Like they're not just making products, they're making tomorrow?" The idea crystallized. Making tomorrow today. We built a comprehensive strategy combining AR experiences, documentary-style content, and real-time factory feeds. Customers could see their products being made, meet the people behind the machines, and understand the innovation process. The pitch presentation took 2 months to perfect. I barely slept. Tyler handled client relations while I obsessed over every pixel, every word, every transition. The night before, we ran through it one last time. "It's brilliant," Sarah declared. "They'd be idiots not to hire us." "They might be idiots." I adjusted the font size on slide 37. "Corporate politics, existing relationships. We're unknowns." "We're innovators," Tyler corrected. "That's our advantage." He was right. Morrison chose us over firms 10 times our size. The signing bonus alone covered our expansion into the neighboring office suite. Margaret opened champagne she'd been saving since Dad's funeral. "To impossible dreams," she toasted, "and the stubborn women who chase them." We clinked glasses in the conference room that would, 4 years later, become the scene of my professional execution. But that night, we were invincible. A family united by shared vision and mutual trust. The Morrison account transformed everything. Revenue doubled. National recognition followed. We hired 12 new employees, leased additional space, and invested in cutting-edge technology. I developed proprietary systems for campaign management, analytics tracking, and client collaboration. Each platform integrated with the others, creating an ecosystem competitors couldn't match. "You're building a fortress," Margaret observed during a board meeting. "Very defensible." "Competitive advantage," I explained. "Our processes are our moat." Tyler nodded along, but I caught him exchanging glances with Mom. "Maybe we should document these systems better, in case you get hit by a bus." "Morbid," I laughed. "But practical. I'll create admin protocols." Those protocols became my first line of defense. I built authentication into every system, biometric locks on sensitive files, audit trails on access attempts, not from paranoia, but prudence. We were handling million-dollar campaigns. Security mattered. Tyler's final year at Northwestern coincided with our biggest growth period. He interned full-time while finishing his degree, focusing on digital marketing trends. His senior thesis analyzed our Morrison campaign as a case study in traditional industry transformation. Mind if I use internal data? He asked one evening. We were working late again, the Chicago skyline glittering beyond our windows. Of course, you helped create it. I granted him elevated access to our systems. Just maintain client confidentiality. He graduated magna cum laude. I sat with Margaret at the ceremony, both of us tearing up as he crossed the stage. We did it, she whispered. Both my babies. Successful. That summer, Tyler officially joined as Director of Digital Strategy. The title felt earned. He'd put in the work, learned the business, and proved his worth. We were finally equals. Partners. Family business in the truest sense. Dreams do come true, I posted on LinkedIn, sharing a photo of the original three of us standing before the new Sullivan & Associates sign. Margaret beamed between her children, professional headshots replaced by genuine joy. The comments poured in. Congratulations. Inspiring. Family goals. We were the American dream personified. Bootstrap success. Generational advancement. Proof that hard work and loyalty could overcome any obstacle. I believed it all. The changes started subtly. Tyler suggested restructuring our meeting schedules. Efficiency optimization, he explained. Somehow, I ended up excluded from several new business pitches. You're swamped with Morrison, he reasoned. Let me handle these smaller accounts, made sense. I focused on our biggest client while he built relationships elsewhere. Delegation, trust, the foundation of good leadership. Margaret's quarterly check-ins became monthly strategy sessions. Just want to stay informed, she said. You know how quickly this industry evolves. Her questions grew pointed. Revenue projections, expense audits, partnership agreements. I answered everything transparently. We were family. Secrets had no place in our success. We should consider advisory positions, she suggested over dinner. Bring in outside expertise. We have a great team, I countered. Organic growth is working. For now. Tyler speared asparagus with unusual focus. But scaling requires infrastructure changes, maybe even leadership evolution. Leadership evolution. The phrase lodged in my mind like a splinter. What exactly needed to evolve? 6 months before the coup, I found the first crack in our foundation. An email thread, accidentally forwarded, discussing transition planning. I didn't copy the original. The participants? Tyler, Margaret, and Richard Brennan. Reasonable explanations existed. Estate planning, emergency protocols, standard business preparation. I almost asked directly, then stopped. If it was innocent, why the secrecy? Instead, I watched. Patterns emerged. Private lunches between Mom and Tyler, closed-door calls with unfamiliar numbers, files accessed outside normal hours. My instincts screamed danger while my heart whispered denial. The week I discovered Tyler's MBA focus wasn't general business, but digital transformation leadership, something shifted. His thesis advisor, a specialist in ownership transitions and company restructuring, coincidence seemed increasingly unlikely. Interesting specialization, I mentioned casually during a team meeting. Restructuring. Tyler's smile never wavered. Fascinating field, all about recognizing when change is necessary for growth. Margaret nodded approvingly. Sometimes fresh perspectives reveal opportunities we miss when we're too close. Too close. Was that what I'd become? Too close to my own creation to see it clearly? That night, I stayed late implementing new security protocols. Not obvious ones, subtle safeguards woven into our daily systems. If I was paranoid, they'd never activate. If I was right, working late again? Tyler appeared in my doorway, takeout bag in hand. Brought Thai. Thought you might be hungry. We ate pad Thai from containers, discussing campaign strategies and client feedback. Normal, comfortable, fraternal. He helped me refine the Morrison presentation, suggested improvements, and shared insights. My brother, my partner, my eventual betrayer. You know I love you, right? The words came unexpectedly as we cleaned up. No matter what happens with the business, you're my sister first. Warning or reassurance? I couldn't tell. Love you too, Ty. Always. He hugged me goodbye. In my office security footage, I'd later see him pause at the elevator, shoulders tense, before disappearing into the night. The last moment of uncomplicated trust between us. 2 weeks later, I overheard Margaret on a conference call. The timeline's set. Thursday's board meeting. Have the papers ready. My blood chilled. Thursday was tomorrow. I spent that night backing up everything. Personal drives, cloud storage, encrypted files. Not sabotage, insurance. By dawn, the authentication protocol was embedded in every major system. My biometric signature became the master key to Sullivan & Associates' digital kingdom. Walking into that boardroom, I knew what was coming. They practiced speeches, the corporate doublespeak, the surgical extraction of my relevance. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the previous 18 hours transforming from trusting daughter to strategic defender. They thought they were checkmating the queen. Instead, they'd activate the endgame. The foundation I'd built wasn't just brick and mortar, contracts and clients. It was code and creativity, systems and soul. They could take my title. They couldn't take my thumbprint. As Margaret slid those papers across the table, as Tyler avoided my eyes, as Richard droned about restructuring, I thought about the first 50,000. The mortgage papers, the paint-stained weekends, the shared why. Dreams and family dinners, all of it leading to this moment, this betrayal, this revelation. They wanted the kingdom without the keys, the performance without the playwright, the music without the composer. In approximately 17 hours, they'd learn that some things couldn't be stolen. They could only be given. And I was done giving. 3 months before the boardroom coup, I stood in my apartment at 3 a.m., staring at screenshots spread across 3 monitors. The evidence was undeniable. Tyler had accessed the Morrison campaign files 47 times in the past week, always between midnight and 4 a.m., always from his personal laptop, always downloading, never uploading. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. Outside, Chicago slept while I dissected the anatomy of a betrayal. The security software I'd installed as a precaution had become a window into deception. Each log entry told a story. Each timestamp revealed intent. The first irregularity appeared 63 days earlier. A simple thing, an investor deck I hadn't created, filed under future positioning. The metadata showed Tyler as the author. The content outlined a restructuring plan where I was listed as legacy creative, transitional role. Transitional. The word tasted like copper in my mouth. I should have confronted them immediately. Instead, I became a digital detective in my own company, installing keystroke monitors, tracking email patterns, building a mesh of invisible tripwires across our network. Not to spy, but to understand. To prepare. The pattern that emerged was methodical, professional, almost admirable in its precision. Weekly breakfast meetings at the Peninsula Hotel between Margaret and potential investors. Tyler's LinkedIn connections suddenly include corporate, restructuring specialists, legal consultations build to strategic planning with firms specializing in partnership dissolutions. They weren't just planning to remove me, they were orchestrating a complete erasure. The most painful discovery came through our client management system. Tyler had been creating parallel communication channels with our major accounts, separate email threads, independent point of contact, building relationships that bypassed me entirely. "Grace seems overwhelmed lately," one email read. "I'll be your primary contact moving forward to ensure continuity of service." Continuity of service. Code for "she'll be gone soon." That night, I made two decisions. First, no emotional reactions, no confrontations, no warnings. They'd chosen subterfuge. I'd respond with strategy. Second, protect everything I'd built. Not through destruction, but through authentication. Through truth encoded in silicon and secured by biometrics. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Tyler was already there, unusual for someone who typically rolled in at 9. "Morning, sis." His smile bright, coffee fresh. "Reviewing the Morrison analytics?" "Fine-tuning the neural network," I replied truthfully. He didn't need to know which neural network. "You work too hard." He settled into the chair across from my desk, the same chair where he'd once nervously practiced. His first client pitch. "Maybe time to delegate more? I could take over some of the technical oversight." There it was, the soft probe, the gentle push toward irrelevance. "Possibly." I kept my focus on the screen. "After we close the Jenkins deal. Too many variables right now." He nodded, stood, paused at the door. "You trust me, right, Grace?" The question hung between us like smoke. I met his eyes. "You're my brother." Not yes, no, no. Just a fact. He heard what he wanted. I said what I needed. Over the following weeks, I embedded authentication protocols into every critical system. Not obvious locks that would trigger suspicion, but elegant requirements woven into the architecture itself. The Morrison presentation became my masterpiece, a Trojan horse of corporate security. Layer 1. Basic password protection. What they'd expect and easily bypass with admin privileges. Layer 2. Encrypted file structures requiring specific decryption sequences, challenging but not insurmountable for skilled IT. Layer 3. Biometric authentication tied to device registration. My laptop, my thumbprint, my retinal scan. Without all three, the files would display corrupted data warnings. Layer 4. The crown jewel. A dead man's switch connected to our client communication platform. If someone attempted to access the Morrison files without proper authentication, it would automatically generate a security report. That report would detail every access attempt, every file movement, every unauthorized change made to the system, and it would send this report directly to Morrison Industries' IT security team. I called it Project Lighthouse, because lighthouses don't attack ships, they simply reveal truth through darkness. Sarah noticed my late nights. "Everything okay? You've been burning it pretty hard lately." "Big presentation coming up," I deflected. "Want it to be perfect." "It already is perfect. You've revised it 16 times. She perched on my desk edge. "Grace, if something's wrong..." "Just perfectionist tendencies." I managed a smile. "You know me." But she didn't. Not really. None of them knew the woman I was becoming. The strategist, replacing the sister. The architect overriding the daughter. Every betrayal requires two transformations. The betrayer's descent into deception, and the betrayed evolution into defender. Marcus caught me photographing documents one evening. "Building an archive?" "Best practices documentation," I lied. Smoothly. "Compliance wants everything backed up offline." He shrugged, returned to his copywriting. Trust was still currency in our office. They spent it freely. I hoarded it carefully. The external preparations proved simpler: new bank accounts in my name alone, legal consultation with Diane Reeves, an IP attorney who specialized in founder disputes, quiet lunches with headhunters who mentioned opportunities at Razorfish, Digitus, even Google. "You're being poached?" Diane asked during our third meeting. Her office overlooked Millennium Park, trees blazed autumn colors below. Being pushed. I slid the evidence across her desk: screenshots, emails, timeline reconstructions. "They're staging a coup." She studied the documents with practiced eyes. "This is comprehensive." "When?" "Soon. Weeks, maybe days." I watched tourists photographing Cloudgate. "I'm not running, just preparing." "Smart." She made notes. "Biometric authentication is brilliant, but legally, I'm not sabotaging anything, just protecting my intellectual property, my systems, my code. Your leverage." She smiled. "They want your work without you. You're ensuring that's impossible." "Impractical," I corrected. "Nothing's impossible, but I can make it expensive, time-consuming, embarrassing." The corporate trifecta. She closed her file. "When this triggers, you call me immediately, day or night." I had lawyers. I had evidence. I had safeguards. What I didn't have was the ability to stop hoping I was wrong. That somewhere in those late-night access logs and secret meetings, there was an innocent explanation. That my family hadn't chosen ambition over loyalty. That hope died the Tuesday before the coup. I overheard it by accident. Margaret called in, the supply closet, unaware I'd stayed late. Her voice carried through the thin walls. "Thursday's board meeting. Yes, severance is prepared. 6 months. Very generous. No, she won't fight it. Grace isn't litigious. She's proud. She'll leave quietly." Proud. As if my dignity was their insurance policy. As if my character was their safety net for betrayal. I slipped out silently. Drove home on autopilot. Sat in my living room surrounded by family photos. Christmas mornings, graduation days, the ribbon cutting when we opened our second office. Tyler's arm around my shoulders. Margaret's proud smile. All of it recontextualized by greed. That night, I activated Project Lighthouse's final protocols, set the authentication timers, encrypted the backup drives, transferred personal files to secure cloud storage. Everything I'd built was now protected by invisible walls of code and law. Wednesday was performative normalcy. I attended meetings, reviewed campaigns, laughed at Marcus's jokes, complimented Tyler's client presentation, thanked Margaret for bringing lunch, Academy Award-worthy performances all around. "Chinese takeout tonight?" Tyler suggested as afternoon faded. "Like old times?" Old times. When we were building something together instead of him stealing it apart. "Can't tonight." I packed my laptop. "Early morning tomorrow?" "The Morrison presentation isn't until 10, he said. "Other meetings first." I smiled. Big day tomorrow. He had no idea how big. That evening, I sat with a glass of wine and my father's old watch. He'd worn it every day until his heart gave out. The inscription on the back read, "Time builds legacies." "Sorry, Dad," I whispered. "Your legacy raised thieves." But that wasn't fair. He'd also raised me. And tomorrow, I'd honor that inheritance. Not through revenge, but revelation. Not by destroying what we'd built, but by illuminating who truly built it. The authentication system ran final diagnostics at midnight. All green lights, every trap set, every safeguard is active. I'd done everything possible. Now came the hardest part, walking knowingly into an ambush. I dressed carefully Thursday morning. The black Armani suit Tyler bought me for my 30th birthday. The Louboutin heels Margaret surprised me with after landing Morrison. The watch my father left me. Wearing their gifts felt like armor. Reminders of what we'd been before they chose to become what they were. The drive to the office took 17 minutes. I counted each one, practiced my reactions, planned my words, reminded myself, respond, don't react, reveal, don't revenge. The elevator rose smoothly. 23 floors of memories, first client meetings, late pizza nights, celebration champagne. All of it leading to this moment, this ending. This is the beginning. Sarah waited in reception. Grace, the board meeting. I know. I squeezed her shoulder. It's okay. But her eyes said it wasn't. Word had leaked. The office knew. They were watching to see how I'd fall. I wouldn't give them a collapse. I'd give them a master class. The conference room door was closed. Through the glass, I saw them arranged like a tribunal. Margaret at the head, Tyler to her right, Richard with his legal folders, my jury, my judges, my family. I paused, hand on the handle, felt my father's watch ticking against my wrist. Time builds legacies. Time also reveals the truth, the CIA. Door opened silently. 3 faces turned. Margaret's diplomatic mask, Tyler's studied neutrality, Richard's professional distance. All of them are complicated, none of them prepared. Good morning. I took my seat, placed my laptop precisely, met each gaze directly. I understand we have business to discuss. Margaret cleared her throat, began the speech she'd rehearsed. Words washed over me like white noise. Restructuring, evolution, strategic realignment. Corporate poetry disguising personal betrayal. I listened, nodded, waited. Let them think they controlled the narrative. Let them believe their plan was working. Right up until I stood. I understand. My voice is steady. My hands are calm. The transition begins immediately? Relief flickered across Tyler's face. They'd expected tears, arguments, emotional collapse. Instead, I gave them professional acceptance. Exactly what they'd counted on. Actually, I continued, it's already begun. I opened my laptop, enter a command, felt my phone buzz as the system acknowledged biometric verification. On screen, a simple message appeared. Authentication protocol active. Morrison files secured. Tyler's phone chimed, then Margaret's, then Richard's. Their security alerts arrive in perfect synchronization, the first domino falling in a cascade I'd spent 3 months designing. What did you do? Margaret's diplomatic mask slipped. Protect my work. I closed the laptop. The Morrison presentation requires biometric authentication, as do all systems I created. You're welcome to try accessing them. Tyler was already typing. Furiously. His face shifted from confusion to frustration to dawning comprehension. The files are locked, encrypted. I collected my things. Accessible only through proper authentication protocols, which recognizes only one biometric signature. This is sabotage. Margaret's voice sharpened. You can't hold the company hostage? I smiled. Interesting choice of words. I prefer maintaining ownership of intellectual property. My lawyers will explain the difference. I reached the door, turned, delivered the line I'd rehearsed. The transition period starts now. You have 17 hours until the Morrison presentation. I suggest you spend them wisely. The elevator descended. 23 floors of liberation. In my pocket, my phone buzzed incessantly. Calls, texts, emails. Panic, digitized, and desperate. Outside, Chicago morning rushed past. Commuters hurrying, taxis honking. Life continued while empires crumbled in boardrooms above. I walked 3 blocks to my favorite cafe. Ordered a cortado. Opened my laptop. The authentication system dashboard showed everything. Access attempts failing. Security protocols triggering. Automated reports generating. Most importantly, The Morrison file timer counts down. 16 and 58, 47. They had less than 17 hours to admit they needed me. Less than 17 hours to recognize my worth. Less than 17 hours before their biggest client discovered the eye. Agency couldn't deliver without its architect. I sipped my coffee. Watched the timer. Felt my father's watch ticking against my wrist. Time builds legacies. Time also enforces justice. The preparation phase was over. The trap was sprung. Now came the waiting, the negotiating, the reckoning. They thought they'd planned everything. Except for one detail. The person they betrayed was the one who'd taught them everything they knew about strategy. But not everything I knew. The game had barely begun. The first call came at 12:47 p.m., Morrison Industries. Not their legal department or procurement team, but Harrison Morrison himself, CEO. The man whose signature on our contract represented 40% of Sullivan & Associates' annual revenue. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Mr. Morrison. Grace. I just received an interesting security report from my IT department. Something about authentication failures on tomorrow's presentation files. I glanced at my laptop screen. The system had worked perfectly. Every unauthorized access attempt logged. Every violation is documented. Everything automatically forwarded to Morrison's security team as part of their vendor compliance protocols. Standard security measures, I replied. We take data protection seriously. Apparently so. His voice carried that careful neutrality. Executive's master. My team tells me your system logged 17 access attempts in the past 2 hours. All failing biometric verification. Care to explain? Through the coffee shop window, I watched business people hurrying past. Normal day for them. Apocalypse for my family's company. There's been a leadership transition at Sullivan & Associates. I'm ensuring all client materials remain secure during the handover. Leadership transition? Papers rustled through the phone. That's concerning. We selected your firm specifically for your involvement, Grace. Your creative vision, your technical expertise. Which is why I've implemented these safeguards. Your presentation materials are protected by biometric locks that only recognize you. He chuckled. Clever, though I imagine your partners aren't thrilled. Former partners, I corrected. As of this morning. Silence stretched. Then, I see. And tomorrow's presentation? Depends on the outcome of today's negotiations. Ah. Understanding dawned in his tone. Well, please keep me informed. We have board members flying in from Tokyo and London. Would hate to waste their time. After we hung up, I checked the authentication dashboard. 26 failed attempts. Now, they were getting desperate. Good. The next caller was Richard Brennan. His attorney's voice was carefully modulated. Grace, this is unfortunate. Nobody wanted things to escalate like this. Really? The secret meetings and transition planning suggest otherwise. We can explain those. But right now, we need to discuss the Morrison files. Your mother is prepared to offer. I'm not interested in offers. I'm interested in recognition. Be reasonable. You're jeopardizing a $40 million account over hurt feelings. Hurt feelings? I laughed. Richard, they planned this for months, recruited clients behind my back, created succession documents listing me as transitional. That's not hurt feelings. That's corporate theft. Strong words. Accurate words. Check your email. I've sent documentation. Every login, every download, every secret meeting, time-stamped, geotagged, legally admissible. His breathing changed. You've been monitoring my own systems? Yes, completely legal. Diane Reeves can explain the specifics. You might know her. She destroyed Hartfield Tech in that founder dispute last year. Grace, nobody wants lawyers involved. Then they shouldn't have involved lawyers first. Goodbye. Richard, The cafe filled with lunch rush. I ordered another cortado and a sandwich. Fuel for the long game. Around me, conversations buzzed about weekend plans and Netflix shows. Ordinary concerns for ordinary betrayals. At 2:15, Tyler texted, "This is killing Mom. Please come back. We can work this out." Emotional manipulation. Expected. I responded, "The authentication codes are registered to my biometrics. No exceptions." At the 2:47, Sarah called. "Grace, what's happening? Tyler's been screaming at IT for hours." Margaret locked herself in her office. "Clients are calling about tomorrow's meetings." "Which clients? Besides Morrison? Jenkins Group wants to discuss their spring campaign. Peterson's Hardware needs the Q4 review, and 3 prospects scheduled intro meetings." Perfect. Collateral pressure. Tell them there's been a leadership change. All meetings pending reorganization. But, Sarah, they made their choice this morning. These are the consequences. Are you coming back? That depends on them. Margaret's call came at 3:23. I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Grace Elizabeth Sullivan. Full name. Maternal authority play. This behavior is beneath you. Funny. I thought betrayal was beneath you. We didn't betray anyone. We made a strategic decision to steal my work, replace me with Tyler, erase my contributions. Yes, very strategic. You're being dramatic. I'm being factual. The board meeting transcripts will be interesting reading, especially the parts where you discuss my limitations and Tyler's superior vision. Silence. Then, you recorded everything. Legal in Illinois with single-party consent. Diane Reeves confirmed it. Her composure cracked. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Recognition. Ownership. Respect. You have our respect. No, I have your needs. There's a difference. Morrison expects a presentation in 15 hours. Jenkins wants their spring campaign tomorrow. Peterson needs their review. You have 2 options, which are admit you need me, publicly, formally, legally, or explain to our biggest clients why their projects are inaccessible. You wouldn't. Destroy the company. I wouldn't. But you might. I ended the call. Let that settle in her strategic mind. Margaret understood leverage. Now she was on the wrong end of it. The afternoon messages piled up. 45. Tyler. It says the encryption is military grade. Did you really do this? 02. Richard. Diane Reeves confirmed you own the authentication patents. We need to negotiate. 4:15. Unknown number. This is Janet Morrison, Harrison's wife. We've known your family for years. Surely this can be resolved. 33. Sarah. 3 employees just quit. They think the company's folding. 4:47. Tyler. Mom's calling emergency investors. This is insane. Richard. Your terms. 1 hour, conference room. I finished my coffee, gathered my things. Time for Act 2. The office building's lobby felt different. The security guard, Eddie, straightened. Ms. Sullivan, heard it's been an interesting day. Historic, I agreed. The elevator ride reminded me of this morning. Same suit, same determination. Different power dynamics. 23 floors later, the office was barely contained. Employees clustered in nervous groups. Phones rang incessantly. Through the glass, I saw Margaret and Tyler in the conference room with Richard and 2 people I didn't recognize. Investors, probably. I entered without knocking. All conversation stopped. Margaret stood. Grace. Let's skip the pleasantries. You have 14 hours until Morrison. What's your offer? One of the strangers, tall, silver-haired, expensive suit, spoke first. Ms. Sullivan, I'm David Chen Capital. We need to understand the situation. Simple. They staged a coup. I protected my assets. Now they need those assets. Assets being every significant system in this company, campaign platforms, client databases, project management, all requiring my biometric authentication. Chen's eyebrow rose. Impressive foresight. Paranoid overreach, Tyler muttered. Prudent protection, I countered. As today proves. Richard slid papers across the table. Revised partnership agreement. You return as CEO, 51% ownership, full creative control. I didn't touch the documents. 60%, board majority. And public acknowledgement of my role as founder and chief architect. 60 is excessive. Morrison represents 40% of revenue. Without that presentation, you lose them. Domino effect hits within weeks. Company valuation drops by half. Maybe more. 60 is a bargain. Chen nodded slightly. Smart money recognizes reality. Margaret's knuckles whitened. This is extortion. This is negotiation. You taught me that. I taught you family comes first. No. You taught me family comes first until ambition offers a better option. Tyler slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Grace, you win. Okay? Whatever you want. Just unlock the damn files. I studied with my brother. Ivy League education, natural charm. Everything was handed to him. Finally understanding that inheritance without merit was just theft with paperwork. It's not about winning, Tyler. It's about the truth. You spent 3 months planning to erase me. I spent 3 months ensuring you couldn't. Chen leaned forward. Ms. Sullivan, what would make this right? Finally, someone asked the correct question. Full restoration. Public announcement of my role. Written apology from the board. And one more thing. Which is? I looked directly at Margaret. Admission. Here. Now. Why did you do it? The room stilled. Even the phones seemed to quiet. Margaret aged 10 years in 10 seconds. You want honesty? I want the truth. She sat heavily. You were getting too powerful, too independent. The clients preferred you. The employees respect you more. Tyler felt overshadowed. So you decided to remove the shadow, to rebalance, to give him room to grow. By destroying what I built, by redistributing leadership. Interesting euphemism. I turned to Tyler. Your turn. He studied his hands. I thought I deserved more. You made it look easy. Everything you touched succeeded. I wanted that. So you tried to take it. Mom said you'd land on your feet, find something better, that you didn't need this place like I did. There it was. The rationalization. The justification. The permission structure for betrayal. I didn't need this place, I agreed. I created it. There's a difference. Chen cleared his throat. The terms seem reasonable, with modifications. 55% ownership, CEO position, board control, public recognition, in exchange, immediate system access and peaceful transition. Richard nodded. Legally sound. Margaret looked broken. Do we have a choice? You always had choices. You just made the wrong ones. Tyler. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Fine, whatever. Just fix this. I smiled. I need one more thing. What now? Margaret snapped. The authentication won't transfer without a biometric reset. Takes 24 hours, minimum. Horror dawned on their faces. The Morrison presentation is in 13 hours. Yes, problem? Chen actually chuckled. You've engineered this perfectly. Learned from the best. I looked at Margaret. Strategy, leverage, timing, your lessons, applied better. So what happens tomorrow? I present it to Morrison. As CEO, with full authority. Questions? Silence answered. Good. Richard, have the papers. Drawn up. Real ones. Not whatever fiction you prepared this morning. Chen, I appreciate your clarity. Mom? Tyler. See you tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. I stood, walked to the door, paused. Oh, And Tyler? That fresh perspective you mentioned? Turns out the freshest. Perspective is truth. Try it sometime. The elevator descended again. But this time, I wasn't falling. I was rising. Rising from the ashes of family mythology. Rising above the betrayal. Rising into what I'd always been but they'd never seen. Not their daughter. Not their sister. Not their meal ticket. Their equal. They're better. They're reckoning. Outside, Chicago evening painted the sky purple. Commuters headed home to families they trusted, families that hadn't chosen ambition over loyalty. Envy flickered, then faded. Those families hadn't built empires, hadn't learned that sometimes the strongest foundations required the hardest lessons. My phone buzzed. Diane Reeves. Heard you reach terms. Impressive. Then Harrison Morrison. Looking forward to tomorrow's presentation. Interesting day? I typed back. Educational. See you at 10. The authentication timer showed 12:43:16. 12 hours until showtime. Until the final reveal. Until Grace Sullivan, CEO, presented the future of Morrison Industries to Morrison himself. They thought they'd orchestrated a coup. Instead, they'd catalyzed a coronation, not the one they'd planned. The one I'd earned. I walked toward my apartment. Tomorrow would bring new contracts, new dynamics, new possibilities. But tonight was for reflection, for processing, for understanding that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in betrayal, because without their deception, I might have remained a good daughter. The supportive sister, the reliable partner, comfortable in shadows while they basked in light I generated. Now I owned the light, controlled the shadows, directed the narrative. They'd pushed me out. I'd built a doorway back, one that only opened for me. The city lights sparkled like promises. Tomorrow I will keep them. All of them. On my terms. With my vision. Under my name. Sullivan and Associates was about to become exactly what I'd always intended. Not a family business. A legacy business. My legacy. Written in code, sealed in law, signed in consequence. Let them learn what I'd discovered. Family was just a word. Power was mathematics, and I'd always been better at math. Friday morning arrived. Wrapped in fog. Lake Michigan's breath clouded the city's glass towers, softening edges, blurring boundaries. Appropriate weather for rewriting history. I arrived at Sullivan and Associates at 7:30 a.m., early enough to avoid the staff, late enough to ensure building security had completed their rounds. The office felt different in my hands. No longer a space I'd built but didn't own. Now it was mine in every way that mattered. The Morrison presentation materials glowed on my screen. 73 slides of integrated strategy, augmented reality demonstrations, ROI projections stretching 3 years. All locked behind biometric walls until 9:17 p.m. tonight, unless I chose otherwise. My first visitor was unexpected. Janet Morrison stood in my doorway at 8:15, her mess suit impeccable, expression unreadable. Grace, may I? I gestured to the chair Tyler had occupied yesterday. She settled gracefully, studying me with eyes that had evaluated $100 million deals over breakfast. Harrison doesn't know I'm here, she began. But after 28 years of marriage, I recognize when something significant is happening. He was impressed yesterday, not by the drama. He's seen plenty of corporate theatrics, but by the elegance of your strategy. I wasn't strategizing. I was surviving. Same thing, done well. She crossed her legs. I'm here with a proposition. Not from Morrison Industries. From me. Personally. Interesting. I'm listening. I run a venture fund. Quiet money. Female founders. Breakthrough technologies. We're always looking for exceptional talent, particularly women who understand both creation and protection. I leaned back. You're offering me a job? Today? Hours before your husband's presentation? I'm offering you options. Whatever happens this morning, remember, you've proven something valuable. Not just technical skill or creative vision, strategic thinking, risk assessment, execution under pressure. Few people demonstrate all three. She placed a business card on my desk, elegant, understated, like everything about her. I appreciate the timing concerns, she continued. But opportunities arise when they arise, not when it's convenient. Why tell me this now? Because in 2 hours you'll renegotiate your life. Want you to know all your cards before you play them. She stood. Whatever you decide, Harrison's presentation will be spectacular. He reviewed your work last week, called it transformative, his exact words. After she left, I held the card, weighed possibilities, then tucked it away. One revolution at a time. Margaret arrived at 8:45. No power suit today, just a navy dress I recognized from Dad's funeral. Armor has many forms. She sat without invitation. I couldn't sleep. I waited. Sometimes silence speaks louder. I keep thinking about your first piano recital. Remember? You were 7, spent months practicing that Chopin piece. The night before, you panicked, said your hands were too small. The piano is too big. I told you something then. Do you remember? That size doesn't determine capability, only practice and persistence. And you played perfectly, tiny hands dancing across those enormous keys. Her voice cracked. When did I forget that lesson? When Tyler's hands looked more like yours. She flinched. Truth cuts deeper than accusation. I convinced myself I was protecting the business, ensuring continuity, preserving what your father started. She met my eyes. But really, I was picking favorites, choosing familiar over excellent, known over proven. Because I reminded you too much of him? Because you surpassed him. And that scared me. The admission hung between us. Your father built with his hands. You build with your mind. He created a foundation. You architected an empire. And I couldn't reconcile my little girl with the force of nature you became. So you chose erasure over elevation. I chose wrong. Simple. Final. The question is, can you forgive betrayal born from fear rather than malice? I considered it. Forgiveness and trust aren't synonymous. I can forgive the mother who raised me. But the business partner who betrayed me, that trust needs earning. I understand. The new terms are about more than percentages and titles. They're about acknowledgement, protection, ensuring this never happens again. It won't, I promise. Promises are just words. Contracts are commitment. She stood, paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of how you handled this. Devastated by why you had to, but proud nonetheless. Strange how parental approval still mattered, even when that parent had orchestrated your professional execution. Tyler's entrance at 9 Klein was less graceful. He stormed in, laptop under arm, face flushed. Congratulations, you've won. Happy? Mom's destroyed, the staff's terrified, investors are circling like vultures. But hey, you got your revenge. Sit down. I prefer to stand. Sit. Down. Command. Voice. The one I'd learned running meetings with Fortune 500 executives. He sat. This wasn't revenge. This was the consequence. You spent months planning a coup. I spent days preventing catastrophe. The only reason we have Morrison, Jenkins, or any client today is because I built systems you couldn't steal. That's not revenge. That's architecture. I never wanted to steal. No. You wanted to inherit what you hadn't earned. Claim credit for what you hadn't created. Lead what you didn't understand. That's not theft. It's a delusion. His jaw clenched. I could have learned. Learning requires humility. Planning my termination while accepting my training shows arrogance. You can't learn while plotting the teacher's obsolescence. So what now? You parade me around like a conquered enemy? Now? You choose. Stay and learn, really learn, what this business requires. Or leave and discover what the market values your vision at without my infrastructure supporting it. You'd let me stay? As Director of Client Relations, your actual strength, with performance metrics and oversight, demotion, reallocation, based on proven capability rather than assumed inheritance. He stared at his laptop. And if I refuse? Then, you refuse, but know this. Every agency in Chicago will learn why. Not through gossip or vendetta, through your inability to deliver on promises made using my platforms. That's blackmail. That's reality. You wanted corporate power? Welcome to corporate consequences. At 9:30, the full signing ceremony began. Richard had worked through the night, crafting documents that made my ownership unassailable. 55%, CEO and chairman, board majority, veto power over all strategic decisions. But the crucial clauses went deeper. Mandatory biometric authentication for all core systems, intellectual property assignments confirming my authorship, non-dilution provisions preventing future coup attempts, public announcement requirements acknowledging my role as founder and chief architect. Chen attended as a witness. His presence carried weight. Markets respect money. Money respected him. Unusual structure, he noted, reviewing terms. But given circumstances, appropriate. The authentication requirements are particularly clever. Margaret signed first. Hand steady. Face composed. The consummate professional even in defeat. Tyler hesitated, pen hovering. If I sign, everything changes. Everything already changed, I corrected. This just documents reality. He signed, pressed too hard, tore through to the carbon copy. Fitting metaphor, Richard notarized, made copies, distributed packets, legal machinery grinding personal drama into corporate record. The announcement? I asked. Drafted. Richard handed me his tablet. Per your requirements. I read carefully. Sullivan and Associates announces leadership restructuring. Grace Sullivan, co-founder and chief architect of the agency's success, assumes the role of CEO and chairman. This change reflects the board's recognition of Ms. Sullivan's instrumental role in building the company's revolutionary platforms and securing major clients, including Morrison Industries. It continued. Factual, professional, devastating in its implications for those who understood corporate communications. Send it. Wide distribution. Include ad age and media post. Margaret winced. Industry publications would dissect every word. Tyler's carefully cultivated image would evaporate. My erasure would be reversed into elevation. The staff meeting? Richard asked. 10:30. After Morrison's presentation begins. They should hear the truth from us before reading speculation elsewhere. And the presentation itself? I smiled. Proceeds as planned. With one modification. Tyler looked up sharply. What modification? Slide 3. The one crediting strategic development now accurately reflects authorship. Your name was removed, mine prominently displayed. That's petty. That's honest. Morrison deserves knowing who actually created their transformation strategy. The room emptied slowly. Each departure was carefully orchestrated. Richard first, documents in hand. Chen next, already phone calling investors. Margaret paused at the door. The piano recital story, there's a second part. I waited. After you played, you asked if Dad would have been proud. Remember what I said? That. He was already proud. Had been since the day I was born. I should have remembered that myself. She left quietly. Tyler lingered. You know what's funny? I actually believed I deserved this, convinced myself that experience didn't matter because I had the right degree, the right connections, the right gender. Gender has nothing to do with competence. No, but it had everything to do with Mom's comfort. She saw herself in me, saw Dad in you, and that terrified her. Fear explains. It doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. He gathered his things. For what it's worth, the authentication system is brilliant. I couldn't crack it. Hired 3 specialists. All failed. Because you approached it as a lock to pick rather than a creation to understand. Maybe. He reached the door, turned. I'll take the client relations position, if it's still available. I nodded. Performance reviews quarterly. Metrics clearly defined. No special treatment. Understood. And Grace? I'm sorry. Not for wanting more, but for trying to take yours to get it. Alone, I sat in the silence. Victory felt different than expected. Less triumphant, more transitional. I'd secured my company, protected my legacy, forced acknowledgement, but at the cost of family mythology, the comfortable fiction that blood bonds transcended business interests. My phone buzzed. Sarah. All hands meeting at 20. People are nervous, natural. Revolution unsettles, even necessary ones. I spent the remaining time updating the Morrison presentation, not the content, that remained locked, but the final slides. The ones showcasing Sullivan and Associates' leadership, new headshots, new titles, new reality. At 10, Harrison Morrison's text arrived. In the building. Looking forward to a transformation strategy. Heard there was some internal restructuring? Minor adjustments. Ensuring our best people are properly positioned. Excellent. Innovation requires proper alignment. If only he knew. The presentation. Room was filled. Morrison's team, 6 executives flown in globally. Our team, myself, 2 senior strategists, and our lead developer. Tyler notably absent. Margaret positioned in the back. Observer, not participant. Harrison entered last. Commanding presence. Silver hair, measured movements. The kind of power that whispers rather than shouts. Grace, congratulations on the promotion. Well deserved, I'm sure. Thank you. Shall we begin? The lights dimmed, the screen illuminated, and slide by slide, I unveiled 3 months of work. The authentication was released flawlessly at 9:17. Every system is online. Every file is accessible. Every detail is perfect. But presenting it as CEO felt different. No longer showcasing someone else's assets, demonstrating my own creation. The strategy unfolded. Predictive analytics, supply chain revolution, customer, journey reimagining. Each element builds toward transformation. Morrison's team leaned forward. Questions sharpened. Excitement built. By slide 50, they were interrupting with implementation queries. By slide 70, Harrison was calculating rollout schedules. The final slide appeared. Not what they expected. Instead of contact information, or next steps, a simple statement. Innovation requires truth. Strategy demands ownership. Transformation needs leadership. Sullivan and Associates delivers all 3. Under new management, same revolutionary vision. Harrison studied the words. Glanced at me, smiled slowly. Indeed, sometimes restructuring strengthens rather than disrupts. He closed his portfolio. We're proceeding. Full contract. Expanded scope. I want this thinking applied across all divisions. Timeline? Immediate. Can your team handle 10-fold scaling? Behind me, I felt the room's collective intake of breath. 10-fold meant Morrison wasn't just buying a campaign. They were buying transformation. Company-wide, potentially $100 million implementation. We'll need to expand. Hire specialists. Build infrastructure. Do it. Budget approved. I want Grace Sullivan's strategic vision systematically integrated. my name, my vision, my terms. We'll begin Monday. Perfect. He stood, extended his hand. Welcome to the Major Leagues, CEO Sullivan. You've earned it. The handshake felt like punctuation. End of one chapter, beginning of another. After Morrison's team left, I turned to our staff. Shell-shocked faces stared back. I've presented dozens of campaigns. This was different. This was an ascension witnessed. All hands in 10 minutes, I announced. Time for truth. The conference room filled differently this time. No hierarchical seating, no power positioning, just humans needing honesty after earthquake upheaval. I stood. No podium, no slides, just words. By now, you've heard rumors, read announcements. Wondering about your futures. Let me clarify. Sullivan and Associates continues. Stronger, more focused, with leadership aligned to creation rather than inheritance. Faces relaxed marginally. The restructuring reflects recognition. I built our core systems, designed our strategies, create the platforms you use daily. That authorship now has proper acknowledgement. Questions? Marcus raised his hand. Is it true you locked out the Morrison files? I protected them. During unauthorized transition attempts, client security remains paramount. And Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Sullivan? Margaret Sullivan remains a board member. Tyler Sullivan joins client relations. I assume CEO responsibilities. Other changes will be merit-based, not political. Sarah spoke up. The Morrison contract. Did they really just expand tenfold? Pending legal review. But yes, transformation strategy impressed them. We'll need significant hiring, internal promotions, new departments. Growth brings opportunity. The room buzzed, fear transmuting into possibility. One more thing. The past months involved deception, hidden agendas, strategic maneuvering. That ends now. Transparency becomes policy. Performance determines position. Innovation drives decisions. Politics dies today. Applause started. Slowly. Built. Became genuine. Not for drama, but for the future promised. As the room emptied, Sarah approached. That was incredible. The presentation, the turnaround, the way you handled everything. Just protecting what I built. No, you transformed betrayal into breakthrough. That's alchemy. Maybe. Or maybe it was simpler. Maybe it was just refusing to let others define my worth, determine my future, diminish my contributions. The afternoon blurred. Calls with Morrison's implementation team, emails from headhunters, messages from competitors suddenly interested in partnerships. The market had spoken. Sullivan and Associates under my leadership was valued differently, higher, accurately. At Sixco, I sat alone in my office, CEO office now. The city sparkled beyond the windows. Contracts signed, announcements sent. Staff reassured me. Victory complete. My phone rang. Unknown number. Grace Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan. This is Andrea Walsh from Fortune. We're running a feature on female founders who've overcome internal corporate challenges. Your story crossed our desk. Interested in participating? I considered it. Public exposure meant vulnerability. It also meant protection. Hard to erase. Someone featured in Fortune. Send me details. I'll review. After she hung up, I opened my desk drawer. Janet Morrison's card lay beside Dad's watch. Options and legacy. Future and past. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Scaling issues. Hiring decisions. Client management. But also possibilities previously locked behind other people's limitations. I gathered my things. Walked through the office. My office. Built. With sacrifice. Protected with foresight. Secured through strategy. In the lobby, Eddie smiled. Heading home, CEO Sullivan? CEO Sullivan. Still settling. Still surreal. Eventually. Dinner first, celebrating survival. More than survival from what I hear, revolution. Sometimes they're synonymous. Outside, Chicago evening painted everything gold, appropriate for new beginnings, for transformations earned through trial. My phone buzzed. Tyler. Congratulations again. You were right. About everything. Looking forward to learning properly. This time. Then Margaret. Proud of you. Despite everything. Because of everything. Your father would be too. I didn't respond. Not yet. Forgiveness was a process, not a moment. Trust was earned, not assumed. Family was complicated, not conditional. But tomorrow. Tomorrow is a possibility. For healing, for building, for becoming what I'd always been but they'd finally seen. Not their daughter, not their sister, not their security, their CEO, their leader, their equal at last. 6 months later, I stood before a crowd of 200 at the Chicago Innovation Summit. The same stage where Margaret had announced the company's founding 15 years ago. Different woman, different world, different future. They say crisis reveals character, I began, adjusting the microphone. I disagree. Crisis reveals systems. Character builds them. In the audience, I spotted familiar faces. Harrison Morrison in the third row, Janet beside him. 3 rows back, my newest hire, a brilliant strategist poached from McKinsey. Near the side exit, Tyler and his client. Relations role, finally comfortable in his actual expertise. And in the back corner, almost hidden, Margaret. 6 months ago, Sullivan and Associates faced existential threat, not from competitors or market forces, from within. The story of how we survived isn't about family drama or corporate politics. It's about the intersection of creation and protection, innovation and authentication, trust and verification. I clicked to the first slide. A simple diagram. 2 interlocking circles labeled vision and security. We spend so much time celebrating innovation. We forget that creation without protection is just a charitable donation to future competitors. Every breakthrough needs both architect and guardian. Sometimes they're the same person. Laughter rippled through the room. Those who knew the story appreciated the understatement. The presentation flowed, not about betrayal overcome or family, redeemed. About systematic approaches to intellectual property protection. About building authentication into architecture. About ensuring creator and creation remain linked in an economy that often prefers separation. The Sullivan Protocol, I explained, unveiling our new consulting division, helps companies build protection into their DNA. Not paranoid safeguards, strategic architecture, because the best time to prevent theft is before creating something worth stealing. 45 minutes later, the applause was genuine. The Q&A is sharp and substantive. Afterwards, the networking portion brought unexpected conversations. Impressive pivot, Janet Morrison observed. Champagne glass steady. From defense to offense, from personal protection to marketable methodology. Necessity breeds innovation. Indeed. My offer stands, by the way. The fund remains interested, though I suspect you're building something larger than we could contain. She was right. The past 6 months had transformed Sullivan and Associates from boutique agency to innovation lab. The Morrison contract expansion funded hiring sprees. Top talent from Google, Apple, and Amazon joined our ranks. The office expanded to 3 floors. Revenue projected to triple within 18 months. But the real change ran deeper. Culture, purpose, identity. I'd instituted weekly innovation sessions. Open forums where any employee could present ideas. No hierarchy, no politics, just merit. Sarah's suggestion for predictive campaign modeling became our newest patent pending. Marcus's insight on narrative algorithms landed us a government contract. Grace. Tyler approached as the crowd thinned. Great presentation. The protocol framework is brilliant. Thank you. Still formal, still careful. Progress, not perfection. Mom. Wanted to congratulate you. He gestured vaguely toward the exit. You know, complicated. I know. He shifted. Can I ask you something? Off the record? I nodded. Do you regret it? How did everything go down? The way we found out who we really were? Interesting phrasing. Not what happened, who we were. I regret the necessity, not the outcome. Fair. He studied his drink. I learned something about myself. Uncomfortable truth. Which is, I wasn't hungry enough. You built because you needed to create. I wanted a position because I thought I deserved it. Fundamentally different motivations. And now? Now I'm building my own reputation. Client by client. Relationship by relationship. Earned, not inherited. He smiled slightly. Turns out I'm good at it. When I'm not trying to be you. You were never supposed to be me, Tyler. Just yourself. Authentically. Yeah. Took a corporate coup to figure that out. We stood in comfortable silence. Not the warmth of before, but not the ice of recent months. Something new. Professional respect tinged with personal history. She reads every article, he said quietly. Mom, clips them, has a folder. Grace's press. Pride and regret bound in manila. Tell her. I paused. Tell her I know. The next morning brought a different milestone. Fortune magazine hit newsstands, with their Founders Who Fought Back feature. My face on page 37. The headline, How Grace Sullivan Turned Betrayal into Billion-Dollar Methodology. The article was thorough, fair, devastating in its clinical dissection of family business dynamics. They'd interviewed former employees, industry analysts, even a cryptic quote from a source close to the situation that sounded suspiciously like Richard Brennan. But the focus remained forward-looking. The Sullivan Protocol was already being licensed by 3 Fortune 500 companies. Speaking engagements booked through next year. A book deal under negotiation with Simon & Schuster. You've become more than you intended, Diane Reeves observed over lunch. We'd maintained monthly meetings, lawyer-client privilege extending into mentorship. Have I? You wanted to save your company. Instead, you've created a movement. Founders. Protecting founding. Creators maintain creation. That's a legacy. It's practical. All great movements start with practical needs. Rosa Parks just wanted to sit down. The comparison felt excessive. I said so. Perhaps. But consider, how many brilliant creators lose their work to corporate machinery? How many innovations get stolen by those who have proximity over contribution? You've given them tools. That matters. That afternoon, I walked through the expanded offices. 3 floors of controlled chaos. The original dental suite was now our archive, preserved, museum-like, a reminder of origins. The second floor housed traditional agency work, campaigns, strategies, the profitable engine funding bigger dreams. The third floor was pure innovation. The Sullivan Protocol Development Team. 30 engineers and systems architects building authentication frameworks. Patent lawyers, security specialists, behavioral psychologists, creating protection as a product. I paused at the memorial wall. Dad's photo centered among company milestones. New edition. My decision. Margaret had cried when she saw it. Good. Tears. Healing tears. Miss Sullivan? Keisha Williams, our newest VP of Innovation, approached. MIT graduate, recruited from Tesla. Brilliant. The Tokyo team has questions about the Yamamoto implementation. I checked my watch. 3 p.m. Chicago means 5 a.m. Tokyo tomorrow. Global expansion brought global schedules. Schedule a call? I'll join. From home. 7 p.m. our time at work? Perfect. And the Stanford lecture series? Right. Next month. 3 lectures on authenticated innovation, academic validation of practical necessity, confirmed, have marketing prepared materials. She nodded, then hesitated. Can I say something? Personal? Of course. I joined because of the Fortune article. Not the drama, the response. Most people would have just fought back. You built forward. That's inspiring. Inspiring. Strange word for systematic self-defense. Thank you. But it wasn't inspirational, just engineering. Problem, solution, implementation. Maybe. But engineering with purpose becomes philosophy, and philosophy shapes culture. After she left, I considered her words. Has defensive architecture become offensive philosophy? Has personal protection evolved into professional principle? The Stanford lectures would explore that. Title of lecture: 3. Beyond Authentication, Building Trust Architecture in Zero-Trust Environments. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost declined. Then I noticed the area code. International. Grace Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan, this is Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Tokyo Institute of Technology. I apologize for the informal contact. I'm writing a paper on your authentication frameworks. Would you consider an interview? Academic interest. Another unexpected evolution. Send details to my assistant. We'll coordinate. After hanging up, I walked to the window. Chicago stretched below. Somewhere out there, other founders were discovering uncomfortable truths. Family businesses fracturing, partnerships dissolving, creations being stolen. But now they had options, protocols, frameworks, hope. The door opened. Margaret entered. First time in my office since before. Do you have a moment? I gestured to the sitting area. We settled into chairs that had hosted celebrations and confrontations. I wanted to... She stopped, started again. I read the Fortune. Peace. And? Accurate. Painful. Fair. She smoothed her skirt. Nervous habit. I've been thinking about patterns, generational ones. Oh? My father ran a small business, printing shop. When my brother graduated college, Dad made him a partner. I was the one who'd worked there summers, learned the trade. But daughters weren't successors. They were helpers. Exactly. I swore I'd be different. Build something where merit mattered. Where my daughter could... She laughed bitterly. Then I recreated the exact pattern. With Tyler. Unconscious bias manifests as conscious choice, wrapped in strategic language, justified by fear. She met my eyes. I need to tell you something about the coup. We've discussed, not everything. She pulled out her phone, scrolled, handed it over. Read, an email chain, dated 4 months before the coup. Between her and someone named Patricia Chen, David Chen's wife, I realized, the investor. Margaret, I understand your concerns about succession, but forcing Grace out would be catastrophic. She is the company, the innovation, the relationships. Without her, you have real estate and letterhead, Mom's response. But Tyler needs opportunity. Grace overshadows everything. How can he grow? Patricia. By learning, not inheriting. Would you rather have a son with wounded pride or a company without a future? Mom. She'll land anywhere. Google, Apple. She doesn't need this. Patricia. That's exactly why she should keep it. People who can succeed anywhere should lead everywhere. The chain continued. Patricia arguing sense, Mom defending fear. Until the final message from Patricia. I won't support this. If you proceed, we're out. She pulled their investment 3 months before the coup, Margaret said. 20 million. Gone. Because I couldn't see past my own programming. Why show me this now? Because patterns need breaking. Publicly. I want to establish a foundation. the Sullivan Legacy Fund, supporting female founders, specifically in family business transitions, preventing what I almost accomplished. You want redemption. I want it to be repaired. Different things. Redemption focuses on the sinner. Repair helps the sinned against. She retrieved her phone. I'm putting in 10 million. Personal funds, not company money. That's significant. It's necessary and overdue. Will you co-chair it with me? I studied her. My mother, my betrayer. My teacher is both a success and failure. I'll consider it. She nodded, rose, paused at the door. I'm proud of what you've built, not just the company, the movement, the protection you're providing others. That's what I dreamed of creating. Before I forgot the dream. After she left, I sat in the gathering dusk, city lights blinking on, day transitioning to night, old patterns yielding to new possibilities. My phone rang. Harrison Morrison. Grace, quick question. We're implementing your protocols in our Asian divisions. The authentication framework is generating interesting data. Seems several subsidiary managers have been creative with their reporting. The system reveals more than technical access. It shows behavioral patterns. Exactly. We're discovering things about our own operations. Uncomfortable truths, but necessary ones. He paused. You've built something bigger than protection software. You've created an institutional truth serum. Side effects of authentication. When you verify everything, deception becomes visible. Philosophical and practical. Rare combination. Speaking of which, Janet's been talking. About that venture fund. Don't suppose you'd consider an advisory role? Your insights on founder protection would be invaluable. Send me details. Life's been educational lately. He laughed. Understatement. By the way, the Fortune article was excellent, though they underestimated your impact. Billion-dollar methodology? Try a paradigm shift. After we hung up, I opened my laptop, checked the protocol implementation dashboard. 17 companies are now licensed, 3 government agencies in negotiation, 2 universities building courses around our frameworks, from personal defense to industry standard in 6 months, from family betrayal to founder protection, from isolation to inspiration. The office quieted as evening deepened, staff heading home to families, lives, normal betrayals, and ordinary loyalties. I remained, not from obligation now, from choice. On my desk, 3 items. Dad's watch, still ticking, Janet's card, still valid, and a printed email from a founder in Austin. Your protocol saved my company, my marriage, my sanity. Thank you for showing us how to protect what we build. That was a legacy, not the buildings or contracts, not the press coverage or speaking fees, but the protection provided. The patterns are broken. The future founders who wouldn't face what I had because I'd faced it first. I pulled up a blank document, started typing keynote address, Stanford Lecture Series, title, The Architecture of Trust by Grace Sullivan, CEO, Sullivan and Associates. They say necessity is the mother of invention. I disagree. Necessity is the mother of compromise. Desperation births invention. And betrayal? Betrayal births revolution. The words flowed. Story becoming a system. Pain transforming to principle. Personal protection evolving into professional. Philosophy. Outside, Chicago glittered. Inside, I built. Not just companies now. Frameworks, methodologies, futures where creators kept creations, where innovation married authentication, where trust wasn't assumed but architected. My phone buzzed. Text from Tyler. Saw the Fortune article at Client Y. Dinner. Everyone is asking about the famous sister. I just smile and say, she's exactly who she's always been. We just finally noticed. Proud of you. Then Margaret. Foundation paperwork filed. First grant recipients selected. 3 female founders facing family business hostility. We're providing legal support and authentication frameworks. Breaking patterns. Finally. I set the phone aside. Returned to typing. The Stanford address would be more than corporate history. It would be called to action. Challenge to industry. Invitation to revolution. Because that's what legacy meant. Not what you built for yourself, but what you enabled others to build. Not the empire you protected, but the protection you systematized. The watch ticked. Generational time. The card. Waited. Optional futures. The emails accumulated. Present impact. And I wrote, architecting trust for those who'd need it. Building bridges from betrayal to breakthrough. Creating protocols from pain. Because sometimes the greatest gift isn't forgiveness or revenge. It's prevention. It's showing others the trap before they step in it. It's building ladders in the pits where you once fell. That's legacy. That's leadership. That's the architecture of trust in a zero-trust world. I typed the final line of my introduction. This is the story of how defensive necessity became offensive capability. How personal betrayal birthed professional protocol. How one woman's trap became an industry's transformation. Welcome to the revolution. Authentication required. The city pulsed beyond my windows. Somewhere, the founders were discovering betrayal. Others were preventing it because of the frameworks we'd built, protocols we'd proven, truths we'd authenticated. Dad's watch ticked toward midnight. New day is approaching, new possibilities, new protections. I smiled, saved the document, stood, gathered my things. Time to go home. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, more implementations, additional innovations, further impact. But tonight was for satisfaction, not in revenge. But the revolution began. Because in the end, that's the best response to betrayal. Not destruction, not retaliation, but transformation. Taking the knife from your back and forging it into a shield for others. That's legacy. That's leadership. That's authenticated innovation. The elevator descended. 23 floors of memories. But now I wasn't falling or fleeing. I was building. Floor by floor, system by system. Future by protected future. The night guard nodded. Evening, Ms. Sullivan. Working late again? Just finishing something? Starting something too? Big day tomorrow? Every day's big when you're building a legacy. He smiled. Truth. Have a good night, ma'am. You too, James. You too. Outside, the fog had lifted, stars visible between skyscrapers, city breathing possibility. And I walked toward tomorrow, carrying authentication into dawn. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe. And hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.